Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to the next episode of the BRIO in the Box podcast. The Open is done.
Yay.
The scores are validated. Everything's done.
Yeah.
Wrapped up. It really goes by quick because really from the first one to the third one is only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Even though it's 3 Fridays, they're only 2 weeks apart. So it
It's
zooms by.
It does go super fast. It used to be 5 weeks, and that tended to drag on quite
I
a
was
bit.
regaling people with tales of CrossFit history. The first Open was 6 weeks of workouts, and there was a glitch with the leaderboard, and so they ended up.
Right.
Remember, the first week actually was 2 weeks. They give you an extra week, and so it was 7 weeks long. That was the worst thing ever. And then it was 5 weeks for a very long time, and now it's just been 3 the last few years. So top 25% in the various divisions get to move on to quarterfinals, which happens third week of April.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe we'll have quite a number of people that made the cutoff in either individual or masters categories or both.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. You earn more workouts.
Yay. And the next stage is much more challenging. They'll start to incorporate more things like GHD sit-ups and rope climbs and handstand push-ups and all that kind of stuff. So
Pistols and squat snatches and high box jumps. And
I'm curious to see this time around, because they opened it up to 25% instead of 10, how much more difficult the workouts will be, or if this year they'll be a little bit more balanced. I don't know. We'll see.
I think, okay, so ultimately the whole series of tests is trying to sort for or select for the fittest on earth, right?
Yeah.
They're going to crown the fittest man and woman on earth. The Open, though, is a community event. It is meant to be for everyone. It is done in affiliates. So there are several factors that go into making up the workouts. Like, it needs to be accessible for most people. It needs to be reasonably safe. It needs to be able to, like, space-wise and equipment-wise be done in most affiliates, you know, so not too complex. And I was saying to someone the other day, it might have been at the level 1 I was at last weekend, and we were talking about how, like, the pyramid, the theoretical hierarchy of development of an athlete from what is fitness. I had it on the whiteboard at the gym for a week. Nutrition and then metabolic conditioning. So nutrition's the foundation, metabolic conditioning is the next thing. And so you have to have the nutrition and metabolic conditioning in place to be able to do well on something fairly straightforward like dumbbell snatches and burpees. Right? So if your body weight is too high or cardio conditioning is not good, you won't do well on a workout like that, moving your body weight 90 times over the dumbbell and then doing it fast, right?
Yep.
So, you know, where people are like, oh, I really would like to showcase my handstand walking I worked on this year, the muscle ups that I got, which we did eventually get to do, or, you know, there's no chance for me to showcase these extra skills that I've acquired or all this strength I've gained on my 1 rep max clean and jerk. You're like, yeah, cool, but you have to have a base. If you have a big clean and jerk or, you know, lots of muscle ups, but you just don't have an engine or your nutrition's not dialed in, it, like, the base is weak,
Right.
you know, so that's kind of, it seems like how the filtering has gone this year. The first one was really just nutrition and metabolic conditioning. The next one that came up, deadlift or row, deadlift, double unders, had same kind of stamina and then some coordination that had to hold up as you got tired with the double unders. And then we got to see a bit more of the gymnastic stuff and a little kind of a heavy thing, heavy stamina in the third one. So a little bit increasing complexity, which I'm sure we'll see continue into quarterfinals. Quarterfinals, I feel like they give way fewer fucks about whether everyone can be included. The point is to program things and select for the fittest that get to go to semifinals and in-person events, right? So
Yeah. I think you'll see a lot more of the higher skill stuff, heavier weights, but you're still going to have that base level of conditioning, you know?
That never goes away.
Yeah, that's always the thing. It's, can you do those things while you're out of breath? It's CrossFit.
And then quarterfinals is like a Thursday to Monday, same thing like the Open, but it's multiple workouts that have to be done in that period. And they have to be done usually on like a checkpoint, like the first 2 are due by Friday and the next 2 are due by Saturday. And so you really don't have time to game it or put them in the right order or repeat them or anything. So then your recovery needs to be on point and your execution needs to be on point, which comes down to a lot of it nutrition.
Yeah.
You know, having things dialed in and being able to perform when you need to, and then, you know, being able to recover for the next day. So that's always the foundation. People like to forget that. You see all the time, people go, oh, I just work out so I can eat whatever I want.
Yeah. Not gonna.
So my question of the day yesterday to people was, of the 3, which of the 3 Open workouts was your favorite? And if you didn't do them, which one looked like it would be your favorite, or which one would you want to do?
Yeah. I can tell you my least favorite was definitely number 3.
Many people chose to answer in the negative.
It's easy to say that the first one was my favorite because that's the one I did the best on.
Yeah.
That's definitely more in my comfort area. That's shorter, not super heavy, no squatting. You know, I can try hard for 10 minutes and be done. That was definitely my favorite one. Yeah, I guess the first one was my favorite one. I'll just go with that.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is your fave.
Yeah.
I would say in my little survey yesterday, the most common answer was the second one.
Yeah.
And especially among people that had not done them. They're like, that second one looked like fun. Kind of friendly. 20 minutes is a comfortable time frame, right? It's not that, oh, I got to go to the Fran Lung pain cave. Like the first one, you had to be comfortable with uncomfortable for that shorter, higher intensity one.
Yeah.
Row, most people like to row. Deadlift was a very accessible weight. It wasn't ridiculously heavy. 185, 125 was the RX weight. And then, you know, you could chip away at some double unders. Some people have them. Some people don't.
Yep.
But we also saw lots of first time hacking through them and forced to RX something. And lots more double unders than people thought. So that was cool.
Yeah, I think the second one was my favorite deadlift workout we've ever done in the open, because we've had some years where they were devastating, like increasing weight, increasing volume. You know, your lightweight, you do 10, and then your medium weight, you do 15, and then your heavyweight, you do 20. It just gets horrible. I thought that this year's deadlift workout was the most accessible that they've ever done.
It's usually that standard 225, 155, like Diane weight. So a little easier, a little lighter.
So this one, it was good. It was a good combination of basic endurance and coordination while you're tired. My double unders fell apart like crazy. I'm sure a lot of people's did as well.
Yeah. I will say, we kind of had this discussion the other day about like area under the curve fitness in one of the previous episodes, where I maybe am never going to snatch 185 again like I did on the top end strength and that stuff. But I feel like my double unders are better than ever. And it turned out they are. They held up really well until the second last round. I started tripping a little bit. But I went unbroken for sets of 50, which I, like in previous years, could not do at all. So yeah, I was really happy with that some of those neurological adaptations, my coordination's better than ever. And there's many other things in my quiver of CrossFit skills that I would say are stronger. So my overall area under the curve, I think, is still pretty decent, or maybe as high as ever.
Yeah. That was the middle one was the workout that we got to do together, and we did it because you were in town for that one.
Yeah.
And I was in the one side and you were on the other side, so I could basically just watch you the whole time.
You were behind me. I couldn't see you.
Yeah. And it was hilarious to see you like just every round get a little further ahead of me until you fully lapped me. And I was like, damn it. I try not to let you lap me, but not when you did. I was like tripping on my fives, doing double unders, just like not having a good double under day. And you're like, oh, there she goes again. Yep. Just zooming through it.
That was one where I'm not a good rower, so I'm not going to win that one on the row. I know I'm losing a few seconds to other people every round.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to transition as fast as I can and getting straight off this rower. The second it says 300 meters, I'm off here, hands on the bar no matter what. And I was like, I'm just going to do unbroken sets of 10 as long as I can, was my plan going into it. And I ended up doing it the whole time. I think I was almost on the 8th round. I was on the double unders of the 8th round. So I was like, hey, that's cool. I generally for many years have avoided high volume deadlifts. So I was happy with that. And then straight to the rope. And I was like, no strategy. I'm not going to try to break them up. I'm just going to go unbroken as many rounds as I can. And it worked out. So yeah, I was happy. That one's not in my wheelhouse by any means. Those are not 3 movements that I would be like, definitely going to crush that. But I was just like happy with, that was as good as I could do. I felt like at the end of that one, I was happy with it.
It's good to do one of those workouts and leave it being like, that's the best.
That's it.
There's no, I kept tripping on my double unders, or I miscalculated how hard it was going to be and I started too fast. And when you can just finish and be like, that's the best I have, that's such a good way to leave it.
That's as fit as I am.
Yeah.
My answer was, I said the third one was my favorite.
Because you're crazy.
Well, I mean, okay, so I did what was good for me on the first one and good for me on the second one. So those ones were fine. But then I feel like the benefit of the open is if you just do well, then where's the challenge? Where's the growth from that? If you just do well on things you're good at, that doesn't feel like growth to me, or there's no lessons there. So the third one, I like thrusters. That's fine. Chest to bar pull-ups, I use the same frickin' strategy I have for the last decade in the open, which is I do them all in singles, one and drop, and I get through them reasonably fast that way versus doing sets and taking longer breaks. Every year at the end of the open, I'm like, next year I'm going to dial in these chest to bars and I'm not going to do them all in singles. And then here we are, 2024, 14 years in the open doing the same thing. But the bar muscle ups, I can get to the bar muscle ups fine. My thrusters are fine, and my chest to bar strategy works enough.
Yeah.
But I have trained bar muscle ups inconsistently this year, very sporadically. And therefore, in the open, my bar muscle ups were inconsistent. I have exactly what I've earned.
Yep.
So I missed a fair number of them that even just to have made all the reps that I missed, like just the ones I attempted and put the effort into, would have been better.
Yeah.
So I like that workout the best because that feels like it gave me something for the year ahead. To be like, hey, dummy, if you don't want that to happen to you again next year, maybe you should work on your bar muscle ups more in the coming year. So that's where I feel is the actual benefit of testing yourself in the open.
Yeah. I think the open is good for that. It shows you where you're weak and it helps push you to do some cool new things. Myself, like I always joke that I'm allergic to thrusters. I hate them. I avoid them. I absolutely do. I think I did more thrusters in the open this year than I've done all year so far.
That's so terrible.
I know. And it's the worst because I'm the one that does the programming. So I'm like, oh, convenient rest day on this day. So I'm taking the strategy of avoiding things and not being surprised when I'm not good at them. But it was one of those things where I did it and people asked me how it was. And I'm like, it went exactly as I expected. I did not do well. You know, I'm not good at thrusters and I don't work on them. So I don't get any better at them. So leaving the open, there's always those sort of mixed feelings, right? Where you're super excited and proud of some things you did. And then you're super disappointed with other things that you did. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like the topic that we're going to be addressing today. So the whole point. The open's over. So now what? What do we do moving forward?
And like I love the open. So many great moments, right? People that did the 50 or 35 pound dumbbell for the first time and thought like they wouldn't finish or that they couldn't do it and they could, or maybe they even did finish. And so people were like, oh dang, I've been avoiding that, but it wasn't as bad as I thought, or I'm capable of more than I thought. Chest to bar pull up, same thing. Double under, same thing. Like people stepping up to RX those things that normally scale them or like get a little timid about them. So love that. And then now, awesome. Now you know you're capable of those things. You've had your eyes open to your level. Now you got to keep doing them. So now you don't get to go back to the 25 pound dumbbell. You don't get to go back to the lighter one. Now that's what you do now. You know, you were fine and it's hard. That's fine.
Yeah.
Take on the challenge and continue to grow at that next level. You've leveled up.
So we had a lot of people that we'd be like, well, I don't know if I should RX this one because I'll probably only get one rep. I'll probably only I don't think I'll get any. And then they would do it and they would get like 20 or so many more than they expected. And it's kind of that, oh shoot, if I actually try, I'm going to get these things. So it's definitely one of those things you have to do it to experience the reality that there's potential there. And then you have to consistently work on it. So often people will get their first muscle up or their first chest to bar pull up in the open, and then 4 weeks will go by and they haven't tried a single one. And it's like, well, now you're back to square one. Now you have to still get that first one all over again. I always use the story. I remember one of our old members, he really wanted to get good at muscle ups. And so he would every day, this was too much, but every day that he came in and trained, he would hop up on the rings and he would do a big set of muscle ups, just whatever he could for that day. And it worked. He got very good at muscle ups because he did them so consistently. Do you need to do it every day? No, but you should do it a couple of times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. You should hop up on the pull-up bar and do some chest to bar pull-ups, or you should do whatever, small amount of volume, just enough to like keep it in your brain and keep that movement pattern there so that when you need it, it's available.
Yeah. And we always try to leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end. And I've been talking lots the last few months about these are your get better minutes and you're warmed up and you're here and you're wearing the outfit. Get a few reps, just take your vitamins, kind of thing. Get them in every day.
And that's all like skill stuff, right? If it's something like a weightlifting thing, obviously you can't. I'm just going to throw 225 on there and deadlift it a few times. That's not what we need to do, but any kind of skill-based new accomplishments, like you can absolutely work on those things with lower intensity more frequently.
And now when they come up in the workouts, it's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
So if you have some chest to bar pull-ups, but you don't have, say the volume in the workout is going to be like 75, maybe it's 5 sets of 15. You're like, well, I'm going to do the first 5 for real RX, and then I'll use a band for the last 10 every set. And then 2 months from now it's half and half. And then, you have to be putting them in somewhere. You can't just go back to the band and never do the full thing again.
The good thing about the way we try to program is usually you're moving between things, right? So let's say we're doing Cindy, 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. It's not like you just do 5 full pull-ups on the first round and then band for the rest of it. You need to get used to doing those pull-ups while you're tired as well. So you're better off doing every round you do 2 or 3, whatever you can, full pull-ups, and then add in the band for the rest of them. You need to be able to do them when you're fresh and when you're fatigued.
And then I'm thinking like the bar muscle ups, a higher skill thing that requires the right coordination, the right technique, more technical things. Spend some time not under fatigue, perfecting the technique. And maybe that's a band, maybe it's a million drills just to get the motor patterns right so that when you get tired, some kind of worse movement doesn't come out of somewhere, just practice makes permanent. For sure. So with those kinds of things that need some precision and accuracy, you need to practice the right technique. So for me, my bar muscle ups under fatigue get a little funky. My feet start swinging sideways. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Shoulders come over separately from each other. The timing gets off. So I often shy away from doing them in a workout under fatigue, or I have a limit usually of missing no more than 3, because then I'm programming the wrong thing. I'm programming myself to miss. I'm programming the wrong motor pattern. But then what I need to do, and I haven't been doing, is just practice time and do them perfect.
Yeah.
And then work on adding the intensity of speed and fatigue.
Yeah. Generally, the best time to incorporate these moments of struggle is when we're programming AMRAPs. We kind of talked about this previously, but we'll hash it again. AMRAPs are great because no matter what, you're done in 10 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever. And so it's not like you're going to be 10 minutes longer than everybody else because you're struggle bus riding the bar muscle ups trying to get through 30 reps. So whenever we program an AMRAP, that's the best stage to embrace the struggle and just really try to challenge yourself in the difficulty of the movements or the weights or whatever.
Yeah. And so say you come to the gym 5 days a week, every 2 weeks is 10 workouts. If you took one workout every 2 weeks to be like, I'm just going to struggle bus through this. The weight, I'm not talking about doing anything unsafe, of course, as long as you can safely move the weight or do the movement, but you're just going to be slow. That's fine. Let's say 1 out of 10, 10% of the time where you're like, I'm going to RX the weight. I'm going to do these pull-ups. I'm going to struggle through these double unders, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And just like the open where I can't start with double unders and then be like, oh, I'll just go to single skips. Nope. I'm staying on this struggle bus until we get to the stop at the end. You know?
Yeah. Especially if it's just 1 out of 10, you're still getting plenty of conditioning and you're improving your fitness in those other days. Some days you just have to pick the skill or pick the weight or whatever and just tough it out.
Yeah. And then you obviously can't do that every workout or you wouldn't get very much fitness if you were just slow. And if it was too heavy and too slow every day, that's not good either. So the bulk of your workouts need to prioritize intensity, but then the ones on the fringe, the 1 out of 10, the 2 out of 10 can prioritize technique, load, difficulty, skill, coordination, that kind of stuff. So embrace the struggle.
Embrace the struggle.
Sometimes.
Now, on the other side of that, sometimes we do the open and something comes up and you're like, oh, I got stopped right in my tracks and I couldn't do that thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's multiple ways you can look at that. You can be like, well, that's stupid and just move on and never actually work on it, like me with thrusters. Or you can be like, okay, this is something I need to address. And so I think when making these decisions, we need to go into it with the right mindset. If I was to say, okay, this year I'm going to get really good at thrusters and all I'm going to do is thrusters, then what would happen? My whole fitness would implode because all I'm doing is thrusters. That their whole area under the curve starts to decrease. And then the next year comes up and now you've got 10 weaknesses instead of 1. So
1 strength and 10 weaknesses.
Yeah. So if there was that one thing, for sure, address it. If it's something you know you need to get better at and you want to get better at, work on it, but not at a cost of everything else.
Yeah. This is why you have a coach. This is why you come to CrossFit BRIO. We do the programming for you. We don't do open gym because we've seen in the past, people left to their own devices don't make the right decisions that further their own fitness. They get hung up and distracted with the wrong things or ego driven or whatever. So if you just outsource those decisions to a coach that knows what they're doing, to a professional, it saves you from making lots of those mistakes. So I had the definition of fitness also written on the whiteboard. I've been doing a lot of these whiteboard nuggets because I feel like you could do CrossFit for 10 years and not understand what this thing is or why it's so different than everything else. Why is CrossFit different than waving your arms around with ropes? You know, so that's also hard. Maybe it's even fun, but that's not fitness, right? And fitness has a very measurable empirical definition. CrossFit was the first organization ever to actually table a definition, a scientifically rigorous definition of fitness, what that means. And it's your ability to generate power, your work capacity, in all different kinds of tasks, in all different time domains, short, medium, long, and anything measurable you can think of. Anything goes, it's all fair game. Box jumps, rucking, deadlifting, clean and jerks, pull-ups, and then you go, how many? 50 box jumps for time. Okay. 30 pull-ups for time. Okay. Run 5K, run 400 meters, run a half marathon, run 100 meters. There's times for all of those things. Everything that can be measured is fair game. And then you have these data points and you plot them and it makes a curve. Your fitness is the area under the curve. Goal in the long term is that curve moves up. You gain more area under the curve, more work capacity. And you don't need to go to that level of scientific nerdiness. You just need to know, are my weights going up? Are my times coming down? And is the amount of reps I can do in a given amount of time going up? And you are getting fitter. But if you're like, spend your whole year being like, I'm just going to focus on my clean and jerk. I'm just going to focus on my weightlifting. But then your pull-ups get worse. Your endurance gets worse. You're running, you're rowing, everything gets worse. So you cranked up one data point and 100 of them fell.
Yeah.
You're less fit. How much strength do we want? How much coordination do we want? How much endurance do we want? Only as much as increases area under the curve. And that's what a good CrossFit program, someone like you that puts them together, seeks to do, right? So that's why you follow a program.
Yeah, there's always different things to work on. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. Sometimes weaknesses come from a place of they're too high risk for us, right? So I don't have great knees, you know, a lot of like crazy shit when I was young. They're a little beat up. And so like pistols, for example, are something that I really, really struggle with. And I don't work on them mostly because they hurt and I end up hurting myself more often than I should. So it's one of those movements where at the end of the day, are pistols super important to area under the curve? Not really. So I generally avoid them altogether. I just don't work on them at all because I know the risk of injuring myself will set me back more than the benefit I'll get from actually working on pistols. So if you know you have certain things that like previous injuries limit you or whatever, is it super important to work on all the things all the time? No, not at all. Yeah. But I can't work on pistols, but what I can work on is my lunges. They're tolerable enough that if I work on them, I think they'll get better. So I can supplement. I can't pistol, but I can get stronger on lunges. Maybe hanging from a bar isn't good for your shoulders right now, but you can do ring rows. And so you can still work on a pulling movement, but in a safer way. So sometimes these little kicks in the pants we get about our weaknesses, they shouldn't be defeating. They're just opportunities, and you have to just be smart in how you approach the opportunity.
And yeah, I think if you go back to the area under the curve thing, if you focused on trying to address a weakness like pistols, but ultimately it ends up hurting your knees and now you can train less often, you can't train, say, squats or step ups or lunges or any of these other things, by trying to attack that weakness that wasn't safe or a good idea for you, you end up with less area under the curve a year later. The safety is definitely a piece that needs to get factored into all that stuff. You just got to know yourself, right?
Yep.
You just got to know what's productive and moves you forward and what's just stupid.
What's dangerous and high risk.
Yeah, dangerous and high risk.
Yeah, people often get too hung up on the wrong things. When, like you said, the foundation is the base, the most important stuff. So don't worry about muscle ups if you're still working on your metabolic conditioning. You'll get there eventually, but for now, let's focus on the base. Let's not worry about pistols if you struggle with lunges. Let's not worry about handstand push-ups if you can't do regular push-ups. There's a progression in earning these movements. So you got to build the foundation and work towards the higher level stuff.
Yeah, CrossFit's charted for safety, mechanics, then consistency, then you add intensity. I have some great charts I was sharing with some of the classes the other day on like road to bar muscle up, road to handstand push up. If you want to work towards that thing, like I'm all for it. There's little checkpoints, like a video game almost, like you got to unlock this, then you unlock that, then you unlock that. And that's the path that you follow. You don't get to skip something and not develop a strict pull-up before you work on muscle ups. You do things smartly and intelligently, and that's how you push forward and get better and stay safe for many, 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 many years of CrossFit.
Yep. So yeah, good year of the Open, good workouts, good tests. Everybody tried hard and I think had a good time.
Yeah.
And a lot of first pull-ups and first time using certain weights. And a bunch of people did the full RX Open for the first time this year, which was great. Yeah. Because they kind of surprised themselves. They're like, oh, I did all 3 of them RX. And I was, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to try.
Yeah. You just got to do it.
Yeah. So next year, same thing. We'll push you guys to try to do it and do it even though you don't want to, but it's really worth it and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so in the next episode, we're going to pick up with some questions from the community. We've been collecting a few really good ones. So we had some questions regarding the transition into ketosis, some great questions about bone health and some red flags for some lifestyle factors that need to be changed. A few people have asked me about menopause as we're all growing old together, some questions about changes related there, how to get stronger. People have asked me about supplements, what supplements are worthwhile. Lots of good stuff coming up.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.